Hey y'all, welcome to Jen's Tiny Kitchen, where I show you delicious recipes that you can make in your own tiny kitchen. Today I am going to be doing a meatloaf recipe. I have adapted it from Alton Brown's recipe, so if you are looking for a more complicated version of this that's maybe more flavorful, which I love Alton Brown, everything he makes is delicious. And you can go on the Food Network website and get the more extended meatloaf recipe. What I did was I took his flavor profile, and then I pared it down to an easy weeknight meal. The first thing you're going to want to do is preheat your oven to 350 degrees and put tin foil on a high-sided sheet pan. This is going to have a lot of runoff, a lot of fat, a lot of juices come off of it. If you use a regular cookie sheet that's not deeper, it may not hold all the juices. If you don't have a high-sided sheet pan, I recommend getting yourself a loaf pan or two, because I haven't tried to make this in a loaf pan, but it may need two separate loaves. Or you can even put them in cupcake and do little balls like meatballs into a cupcake holder, make individual sized portion meatloafs that way. So you're gonna wanna tin foil this. I sprayed it with some nonstick cooking spray so that the meatloaf won't stick when it's done. This is just going to help with cleanup, the tin foil. It's still going to get underneath and all that. At least it's not gonna be cooked on. So now on to the meat itself. I got an 80-20 blend of meat. If you want something leaner, you can. He recommends actually mixing some sirloin on, which is very, very lean. But this is 2.5 pounds roughly. Anywhere from 2 to 2.5 pounds is what you're going to want to use for this. In this spice blend, I've got a teaspoon of chili powder, a teaspoon of garlic powder, a teaspoon of cumin, a teaspoon of thyme. If you don't have thyme, I've used oregano and it tasted great. Also 1.5 teaspoons of salt and 1/2 teaspoon of black pepper. So we're going to go ahead and just shake that in there. Next, we want breadcrumbs. I'm using 1/2 cup of Italian seasoned breadcrumbs. You really don't want to use the plain, because the more flavor you can pack into this, the better. And 1 egg. And here's where it gets a little bit messy. You want to remove any jewelry you might be wearing, even to the wrists, so any watches, bracelets, and the like, because you're going to be mixing this by hand. It's the best way to get a thorough mix, hands down. All right, so I've got it thoroughly mixed here. Now, as you can see, if I was to squeeze it, it would stick together. If you feel like it's too crumbly, add a few more breadcrumbs. I'm trying to use the minimum amount of breadcrumbs because I don't want any added carbs. This is a good low-carb dinner. If you feel like it's not sticking, or if you've added other things in, like diced onion or even vegetables in the mix, you want to dice them small, and you want to use some more breadcrumbs and maybe even an additional egg if you're really having some trouble. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take it over to the sheet pan and turn it out and form it into a log. Make sure I got everything up. That's how you know it's been mixed thoroughly too, when everything comes out of the pot, no problem. Now, I prefer a long and thin meatloaf because I feel like it cooks crisper and more thoroughly. So the next thing I'm going to do that's not in the Alton Brown recipe is I'm going to lay some bacon. I've got 4 strips of bacon here. And I'm going to lay some bacon out on top of the meatloaf. That's going to give it some added flavor as well as a little bit of an extra added fat. As you can see, I've kind of crisscrossed the way I've laid it out. And then finally, because my family doesn't really like diced onions in the meat, I am going to put a couple slices of red onion. And the reason why I picked red onion is because it's going to caramelize a little better because it's a sweeter onion. And if it isn't cooked all the way through when you pull it out to a like caramelized crispiness, it will still not be an overpowering oniony flavor. Okay. All right, and so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to pop that in the oven for 10 minutes while I measure out my glaze. Okay guys, so the meatloaf has cooked for 10 minutes now, and we went ahead and took it out of the oven so we could put the glaze on top. Now Alton Brown's glaze is amazing. I highly recommend it. To cut some sugar tonight and also make things a little bit easier, I'm going to use a half a cup of plain ketchup. Now the reason why I'm not too worried about how bland plain ketchup might be is because we're using the onions and the bacon, and that's going to flavor it a whole lot. So you don't need the added mix-ins. Now if you want to do Sweet Baby's Ray's barbecue sauce or something else that would taste really good with meat, then go ahead and try it, and let me know in the comments how it came out for you. So I'm going to make sure that the onions first off get some, because we don't want those onions to dry out and get crusty. No crusty onions. Okay. And then the rest of this I'm just going to kind of plop. Okay, now that I've scooped all of that out, I'm going to smooth that so it's nice and coated. Try and get a little bit underneath those onions, just a little bit with your spatula. See how it looks on the other side here. Looking good. And so then we're going to pop this back in the oven for an additional 35 minutes. Let that glaze really set up. All right, it's in the oven, and you know it's done when the temperature readout is at 155. Pro tip, if you don't have a thermometer already at home, I highly recommend this Chef Remy thermometer. I got it off Amazon, and it does very high readouts. I've used it for sugar work as well as for checking meat. I think I spent about 20 bucks on it, but 20 bucks is worth it for a good thermometer that's going to read out accurately for you and not make your family sick. All right guys, there you have it, my finished meatloaf. One of my favorite meals. It's one of my family's favorite meals, and it smells absolutely heavenly. I cannot wait to dig into this for dinner tonight. I'm going to be serving it tonight with a side of loaded cauliflower, and that is like mashed cauliflower with some cheddar and bacon bits and sour cream, so that's a little bit like a mashed potato. If you'd like that recipe, let me know in the comments, and I might make a future video for that one as well. If you enjoyed this video, go ahead and hit the like button. If you want to see more videos in the future, hit the subscribe button. I'm going to be doing at least one video a week. If you make this recipe or have a suggestion for a future video, let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching. It's time for me to dig into this. Bye, y'all.